Good morning. And the Tuesday, November 21st, 2017 regular Board of County Commissioners meeting will now be called to order. We'll begin with a brief moment of silent reflection for our first responders, followed by an invocation by Jeffrey R. Smith, our clerk of the court, and then we'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Tim Zork. Please rise. Once again, please join us with a moment of silence for our first responders.
Dear Heavenly Father, we do thank you in this week of Thanksgiving for our first responders all over the world, but particularly here in Indian River County. May they have your hedge of protection over them as they serve us each and every day. Lord, in your word it says, praise the Lord, give thanks to the Lord, because he is good, his faithful love continues forever. This week, Lord, we give thanks for our families and for our country and our county here, Lord. We just give thanks to you as well for what you've done for us. Be with us as we enjoy our families this week. And Lord, just protect us and give your hedge of protection around all of us. These things we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, this will be a little different kind of a meeting because I believe that was my last official act as chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. Commissioners, I just want to say thank you for your civility and your support. And I think we got a lot of great work done this year with, of course, with staff and our citizens. And we will continue on. So with that, I say thank you to all. And I take this gavel and the placard as well. I don't want you to damage our desk. We don't have the budget for a new desk. So I will pass that to our county attorney, who will now become the acting chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. Congratulations, Counselor.
I'd now like to open up the floor for nominations for the chair of the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners.
I'd like to nominate Peter O'Brien for chairman.
Second.
Do I hear a second?
That was a second by Commissioner Bob Solari.
Solari. So I've got a motion from Commissioner Zork, second by Commissioner Solari. Do I have any other nominations? If none, I will ask if there is a motion to close the floor.
Second.
That is a motion for Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Flesher to close the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Congratulations, Peter.
That motion passes unanimously to close the floor. Now just we will have a vote on the nomination for
Bob Solari.
Commissioner O'Brien. I'm sorry, we need to do the vote on O'Brien. So that's all in favor of O'Brien, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. And with that, I'd like to congratulate Commissioner O'Brien for being voted chair of the Board of County Commissioners for the next coming year.
We'll be under fine leadership.
And of course,
And now I'd like to open up the floor for nominations for the vice chair for the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners.
Bob Solari.
That is a nomination by Commissioner Flesher for Bob Solari. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a second from Commissioner O'Brien. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to close the floor?
Motion to close.
Motion by Commissioner Flesher to close. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a second by Commissioner O'Brien to close the floor. I'd like to now have a vote on the motion to close the floor. So all in favor of the motion to close the floor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously. And now just a vote on the nomination for Commissioner Bob Solari for vice chair of the Board of County Commissioners. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. With that, Commissioner Solari, you are voted the Vice Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. I want to thank you on that position.
Congratulations, we're in good hands.
And with that, I get to pass the gavel down to Commissioner O'Brien. Thank you very much.
You need to look in the mirror.
Want to shift over, or you want to wait for
No,
a
we're
break?
good here. Thank you very much. Well, thank you all very much. I'd like to first congratulate Commissioner Fleischer on a very fine year of his chairmanship and leadership here. I concur with your remarks. I think we've done a lot of good things, and obviously it always starts with the chair. I always believe that in our board, and always look to leadership from the chairman position. I want to thank my fellow commissioners for your faith and confidence in me to be your chair. I will certainly try to uphold the responsibility you've placed with me. And I would just like to say this, that entering now my 12th year of service, I think this board has, over the years, just been outstanding. And I think one of the areas where we excel at is allowing the public to speak at our meetings. And as I have in the past, I will continue over the next year that any citizen that wishes to speak will certainly not be placed under a time limit, keeping with the rules of keeping the talk polite and not being unduly out of order. But as long as that constituent wants to express their thoughts, their opinions to this board, I will certainly make sure that those people get to be fully heard and will not have a time limit. So with that, commissioners, again, thank you for your support. I would like to acknowledge my wife, Susan, sorry about this, who is my strength, and I just want to thank her for being here this morning for this, and for all her support, day in and day out. All of us know that sometimes this can be a difficult position, and we take a lot of flack, and usually we handle it very well, and it's the spouses that are left to have to deal with it. So I just want to thank my wife, Susan, for all her support, both past, present, and in the future. So with that, my apologies for getting a little off track, but with that, we will now return to the commission meeting. On the agenda, is any additions or deletions to the agenda or any emergency items? Commissioners, you should have received in Granicus 2 updates. One is some additional information on agenda 8F, some additional items from surplus, and we'll pull that for discussion when we get to consent. And also attorney's matters, item 13B was some updated lease agreement information. Both of those should have been available to you on Granicus. If not, we'll make sure you get a hard copy if you need it. And is there any other changes, deletions to the agenda?
Move agenda as amended.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Slurry, second from Commissioner Zork to approve as amended. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Very excited now for this presentation. Presentation on monetary grants for a recycling pilot program within the Indian River County School District by Stephanie Fonville, who's our Recycling, Education, and Marketing Coordinator for Indian River County. Good morning, Stephanie. Welcome. And I see you've brought some high-powered folks with you, so we're very excited to hear about this.
Yes, absolutely. And I am absolutely thrilled to be here to talk to you about the IRC School Recycling Pilot Program. As you know, we've been working to try to get a recycling program in the schools. So we've banded together with the schools. I have Dr. Mark Rendell, the superintendent of the Indian River County School District, with me here today. We had applied to 2 monetary grants. The Think Green Waste Management grant, and I have Amy Boyson, the Community Affairs Manager of Waste Management, with me here today. And also we applied for the School Carton Recycling Grant Program from the Carton Council. And unfortunately, the Carton Council representative, Barbara Heineken, couldn't be with me today, but she did give me a note to read to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program and what we're hoping to do, and then I'm going to open the floor to Amy to say a few words and to Mark Randell to say a few words if they wish. So to start, the vision of the IRC School Recycling Pilot Program is to provide tools, recycling tools, for campus-wide recycling at selected schools, which if this is successful, this is going to serve as a model that we can expand into the other schools in the district. So as a recycling coordinator, of course, I feel that recycling is very important. And now as a parent and as a member of this community, I feel that recycling, instilling a habit of recycling for our students is very, very important. So the vision of this is to get recycling in our schools. We picked 4 schools: Pelican Island Elementary, Storm Grove Middle School, representing the high schools. We have Vero Beach High School Freshman Learning Center. And with our resources, we had enough resources to add a magnet school. So we've added Rosewood Magnet Elementary School into this pilot program as well. So essentially what this means is we're providing tools to get a robust recycling program. Those tools, of course, include containers. So we're purchasing containers for the classrooms. We're purchasing containers for the offices, for the copier rooms, for the teacher lounges, teacher workshops, hallways, outdoor dining areas. Many parents will come and have lunch with their students, and they'll eat outside. So we're providing recycling containers for all of these locations and the cafeteria as well. Not only are we providing the recycling containers themselves, but it's also really important to make it easy for the custodial staff to go through and collect these recycling. That's a big part of making this a successful program. So we'll be purchasing things called tandem dollies or duo dollies. It's just a little cart, a little black platform that has wheels on it. You can put containers on it, so as they're going through, they can empty their garbage into one side, recycling into the other side, and just push the cart along. So we're really focusing on providing all the tools that they need to have recycling become very visible in these schools and essentially create a culture of sustainability in our schools. So our kids get used to seeing recycling, they get into the habit of it. So we're really, really excited. The classrooms and offices, they'll usually have paper or plastic bottles, so that'll be fairly easy for them to understand. But the cafeteria is really where this can get a little bit difficult for them, so we're going to need a little tender love and care in the cafeteria program. So one of the things that we suggested doing was setting up a disposal station. The students can come through, they'll have a 5-gallon bucket, they can empty their liquids in there, toss their recycling into a recycling container, and then their garbage into another container. Now this picture that I have up on the screen is actually from Pelican Island Elementary School. We went and talked to their school staff. They got so excited that they've actually started implementing this program into their cafeteria. And they also have composting. They've just started composting this year. So they not only have their liquid container, there's actually a 5-gallon bucket in that big container. So they not only have their liquid container, but they also have a section for the students to take out, to toss their food, then their recycling, then their garbage, and then they bought compostable trays for their cafeteria. So this is an example of what we'll implement in the other schools as well, except for the composting part. And we'll also enlist some of the students to get involved during the cafeteria to act as a green team, to act as basically ambassadors for recycling. They'll help their fellow students navigate this little disposal station. So that's what we're going to be implementing in all the cafeterias. We're also going to have signage. Education is very important. So I've mentioned before the Recycle Across America is a non-for-profit organization that's trying to standardize all the labels. They've donated 400 recycling labels to the schools, or to this program, 100 labels per school, so we can put that on all the containers. We've already talked to some of the teachers and some of the principals about having the students make posters to kind of announce when this is coming. And then we have some signage that we can offer them as well. So this program, we're hoping to start it off after they come back from winter break, so we have enough time to order the materials, get everything into place. And in order to figure out if a program is working, it's always great to have before and after data. So we're going to be collecting data of how full the garbage dumpsters are, how full the recycling dumpsters are. Once we implement the program, we're going to continue looking at those to see if we see a reduction in garbage and an increase in recycling. We'll also come up with surveys for the students to take so we can see if they're learning more about recycling. So we're really, really excited to get this going and really get the kids excited and motivated and involved in this. So as I said, that's the description of the program itself. Sorry, there it goes. We have our sponsors. We cannot thank our sponsors enough for for offering us this grant program. The Carton Council is a nonprofit organization. It was started by carton manufacturers who wanted to see their materials get recycled. So they created this carton recycling grant program. It's designed specifically to help schools across the country establish school carton recycling programs with the objective of increasing awareness of school carton recycling. So they knew schools was really where a lot of cartons are used. So they made a grant specifically for the schools. And as I mentioned, Barbara Heineken is the representative for the Carton Council. She couldn't be here today, but she did give me a letter that she wanted me to read for you. So I'll read that for you real quick. She says, I'm so sorry I can't be in attendance with you today. The Carton Council is very pleased to be working with Stephanie Fonville, the Indian River County Solid Waste Disposal District, and the Indian River County School District. I know that Stephanie has been working hard to develop a pilot recycling project in the schools. We are excited that we can help with the implementation of the project with our grant of $5,000. Milk and juice cartons are a big part of cafeteria waste. The schools should see a significant drop in waste by recycling, and the students will be learning an important lesson about taking care of the environment. Thank you for your support of this important program, and happy holidays from Barbara Heineken. So we just really thank the Carton Council for coming alongside us and making this program possible. And of course, we also wanted to give a big thank you to Waste Management. They have their Think Green grant program as part of their ongoing effort to encourage the development of local communities, the engagement of environmental solutions, and building sustainable communities. So a big, huge thank you to Waste Management for their donation of $2,500. And I did want to give Amy an opportunity to say a few words if she wanted to.
Good morning, Commissioners. As Stephanie mentioned, I'm Amy Boyson, Community Affairs Manager at Waste Management, and I'm excited to be here this morning. We've had our Think Green grant program for over 10 years now, but prior to last year, only Keep America Beautiful affiliates could apply. So the process became a little more competitive because now cities, counties, schools, and civic organizations can all apply for the grant. But Stephanie's application was incredible. We too believe that recycling education in schools is important, and that's for two reasons. The first one, our youth are our future leaders, so we want them to be recycling at an early age. And the other one is we know that they will go home and tell their parents how to recycle correctly. So that's why we like to go into the schools. But congratulations to Stephanie on her awesome application into the Solid Waste Disposal District, and we are excited to roll out this program with you all in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And also, I did want to mention that Waste Management will be offering volunteers. So that first week when we're trying to navigate that cafeteria, they've offered volunteers to help with that. And we've also talked to Keep Indian River Beautiful, and they're going to be offering volunteers as well. So we're really going to help the students kind of understand how to navigate that and how to recycle. And of course, I'll be there because everyone knows I get really excited about recycling. So thank you, Amy. And then also, I wanted to just give a huge thank you to everyone in the school district, to Dr. Rendell, who met with us. We sat down, we talked about ideas, we talked about the schools and how we could make this program successful. They've answered all of my questions. Robert Michael, the director of the physical plant, he took me on a tour of all the schools so we could talk about what would work. And of course, the principals and the staffs of all 4 schools, I've met with them a number of times, and they've answered all of my questions as well. So this is a collaborative effort. It would not be possible without all of these folks. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. And Dr. Rendell, did you want to say a few words? Or?
Sure, just real quickly.
Okay.
I just want to publicly thank Stephanie for reaching out to us and offering this opportunity to us. Stephanie and the other staff, Himanshu, they were the ones that brought this idea to us and said, would you partner with us in this recycling endeavor? And we said, absolutely. But Stephanie's the one that's written the grants, secured the money, and we're going to work together to make this happen in 4 of our schools, and hopefully it'll be so successful in those 4 schools that we'll make it a district-wide initiative. But thank you, guys.
Great.
Do you want to say something?
Good morning, Commissioners. Himanshu Mehta, Solid Waste Disposal District. I also want to thank Stephanie and Waste Management and the Carton Council and the school district. This is a collaborative effort, and I can tell you the history I've had in terms of the assistance of having Stephanie on board. We applying for grants is something is very intensive and takes time to do so. And Stephanie applied for both of these grants and successfully, got them is amazing. So I'm proud of her and everything she's doing. And I think this is going to be a really exciting program for us. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that is it for us. If you had any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them. We're just really excited to see this move forward and to get our kids involved.
Excellent, Stephanie. Commissioner Fleischer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a question for Stephanie. Over the years, I've always had a concern about the food trays, the non-recyclable black food trays, and I believe that I heard something that we talked about a compostable food tray.
In Pelican Island, they're one of the first schools to try composting. So Pelican Island Elementary School, they did order biodegradable trays, and they have a separate container where they're going to be collecting all those trays and they're going to try to compost them. So that's the only school that's there so far, but who knows what the future might bring.
Well, that's exciting news, refreshing news, and tremendous program. And Doctor, thank you for embracing this.
Say yes.
Commissioner Zork.
Yes, thank you. Also, Amy wanted to extend a thanks to Dina and George, who early on, I know my wife met with them, and Dina said, make sure we go after the grants that they have available, not only just the financial support, but the manpower support that Waste Management will be providing with this as well. They're great, super great community partners. I wanted to make sure you give Dina and George a special thank you from all of us.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Amy, did you have something you wanted to show?
Yeah, if we, well, this is just the fake check, but big checks are always exciting. Let's see if we can get a picture with all of you.
Sure. Come
Is
on
that
up.
okay
Great
for a
job.
picture? All right.
You got to like that one.
Try to get that one through the ATM. What is it? Squeeze down.
Everybody squeezed in, yeah.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate you. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you. Thank you. Doc.
Dr. take care. Yeah, thank you. Thank you again, Stephanie. There were no minutes for approval. Moving to informational items, there's two items there. This one is near and dear to my heart. We had a letter from a constituent mailed directly to Rich Spirica, our Public Works Director, and this was a very nice little note of appreciation for some of the grading and hole filling work that Public Works is doing. It's always nice, we get a lot of the complaints about all this, so it's nice and refreshing when we get the thank you note. And the other item is the venue event calendar, and just to let y'all know, they're going out 2 months on this event calendar. You can see there's lots going on in the county, and I would like to point out that both my South County monthly meeting and Commissioner Adams, your North County meetings at the North County Library are on the venue as well, so that's a chance for folks to come out and see what's going on. Moving to the consent agenda, we have a request from staff to pull item 8F, and then I had a request from the audience to pull item 8L. Commissioners, does anyone else wish to pull anything from the consent agenda?
I also had 8L, but that's covered. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Seeing none from the commissioners, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to have a consent agenda item pulled for further discussion? Seeing none, commissioners?
Move approval.
We have a motion from Commissioner Fleischer, or second by myself. All in favor, approve the consent agenda as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Jason, item 8F, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You should all have before you some additional items that we would like added to the surplus list. There are 7 additional vehicles here. We would like to get these added at this time because there's frequently some time before the next physical auction is held. We can do online auctions for some of our more minor items, but our vehicles, the board has passed a policy where we do those at live auctions. Unfortunately, due to the timing of this time of year and when this auction happened, we had we didn't get all of the vehicles added in a timely manner. We're going to look at the process there to make sure that we make sure that we address that issue in the future, but requesting your approval to add these 7 vehicles to the surplus list.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the item with the 7 additional vehicles.
Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Solari, second by Commissioner Flesher, to approve item 8F with the additional items. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Item 8L is regarding the well mitigation plan, and we have it listed as under Countryside Citrus. This morning, Mr. and Mrs. Van Antwerp asked me to correct that the mitigation plan should be in the name of Frederick W. Van Antwerp and Florence B. Van Antwerp. They are the actual owners of the property, and Countryside Citrus is a leasee. So they're requesting that we modify this item to reflect that the Van Antwerps are the owners and not Countryside Citrus.
Very well.
And Commissioner Zork, you had a comment on this?
Yes, I think what we'll do, it may be appropriate to, I don't know if we're going to have staff do their presentation, but one other cure option I wanted to throw out on the table. I've had some conversation with Doug Bornick, not had any conversations with any of the Van Antwerps. We also had the presentation, or I had spoke with Vincent Burke in our utilities department. And I don't know if this is an option, something that the property owners would consider, but in the options to cure is to put out, if they ever had thought of selling the property, to engage in a discussion on that, but only if the property owners have ever considered that or thought that, to put, when we put all the options on the table, at least have that one be one of the items to consider as a potential possible full or partial solution to the problem. We know the water and the drafting and the well issues is the main concern, but where that property is located and some of the plans over the next decade, there could be some benefit that the county could glean from that property. Obviously, if not, we'll come up with other solutions, but I wanted to at least maybe add that to the mix of overall solutions as we're going through the options. Again, only if the family owners, if that's something that they would even remotely consider.
Right, and Commissioner Zorka, very good comments, although I think for today, I think the Van Antwerps, their purpose for being here was just to correct how this was titled.
Okay.
I don't think that they're prepared to negotiate anything at this point in time. So I might suggest you go ahead and get with Dylan and Vinny and get your thoughts conveyed to them.
Okay.
And then when staff sits down and works with the Van Antwerps, it can be factored in then, but I don't think they were ready to
No,
do anything today, so.
I had to briefly had that conversation with Vinny last week. The agenda had already closed, so wasn't able to put it on for the comments for this week. But since they were in the audience, I'd at least bring it up from a discussion standpoint. But I'll follow those procedures. Thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Flesher?
Again, it's my understanding, I've worked with the Van Antwerp staff, Doug, Mike. I think we're going in the right direction to ensure that the right thing is done to cure, as opposed to a temporary stopgap, trying to get some more water, pump it over. I think a consultant and a clear path for engineering, design, and then we move forward with the structure to ensure that they have their farms. There were very few farms left here in New River County, citrus or otherwise, and we need to move forward as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Commissioner Solari?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to ask the county attorney if he's good with the name change.
I'm fine with the name change. The agenda item references Countryside. I can say that the work order actually represents Van Antwerp property, and with the Exhibit A referencing the Van Antwerp property.
And the agenda item does state that it's Mr. and Mrs. Van Antwerp's property.
Fine. So I'm happy to move the item with the Van Antwerp name.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Sari, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Any discussion on the board? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on the motion pending? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming this morning. Appreciate it. There are no constitutional officer items. There are no public hearings. There's no public discussion items. So that takes us to public notice items. Mr. Reingold, would you do the honors, please?
Thank you very much. We have two public notice items today. The first is a notice of a scheduled public hearing for December 5th, 2017. This is the county-initiated request to amend the 5-year capital improvements program and the supporting data and analysis of the capital improvement element of the comprehensive plan for the period fiscal year 2017-2018. This will be legislative in nature. Additionally, we have a notice of a scheduled public hearing also for December 5th, 2017. This is D. Brown's request for abandonment of a portion of 21st Place between 97th Road and East 98th Avenue, lying south of lots 1 through 3, block II, it appears, and north of lots 7 through 9, block HH of Vero Tropical Gardens, Unit 2. This will also be legislative in nature. Again, these are two public hearings scheduled for December 5th, 2017. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Dylan. There are no county administrator matters, so we go to departmental matters. Under community development, we have a condemnation, demolition, and removal of unsafe structure located at 4076 Old Dixie Highway in Vero Beach. I believe Bill DeBrawl, the Deputy County Attorney, will lead off the discussion. Bill, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Bill DeBrawl on behalf of the County Attorney's Office. We have before us today the demolition of the old Club Valley building that's located on Old Dixie Highway just south of 41st Street on the east side of the road. It's a two-story structure that's been in failing condition for quite some time. If you take a look at your screens, we'll take a look at some of the pictures that have been taken. You can see the Club Valley building there. The windows and doors are gone. You can see there through the open window by my cursor there that it goes all the way through to the other side. Some of the one of the challenges that we will have in demolishing this building will be its proximity to the other building that's owned by Mr. Cobb. Mr. Cobb's attorney, Michael O'Hare, is here on his behalf this morning as well. Mr. Cobb's business is an operating business. He has recently been complaining of water coming into his building, so the demolition contractor will have to take care as far as making sure that the demolition does not affect Mr. Cobb's building. It's my understanding that there are two walls. There are separate walls for each of the building, so Mr. Cobb's building should not be affected by the removal of the old Club Valley. You can see that the flooring is collapsing. Various vines and everything have taken over the site. More broken windows. Then you can see the other structures where there's just all kinds of junk piled in there, more broken windows, more cracks that you can see in the building of the structure as well. And just how it relates in comparison to the other buildings. The current owner of this building is a company out of Ohio by the name of Summit Tax Partners. They're an investment firm, I guess, that buys up tax deeds. This building was purchased at a tax deed sale, and as you know, that governmental liens go along with the sale of the tax parcel. It is not wiped out or scrubbed by the tax deed sale. We have been in contact with Summit Partners. They have asked for a recommendation of contractors. I sent them the link to the Treasure Coast Builders Association to have maybe a local person on behalf of Summit go and take a look at the structure. That was some time ago, and I have heard nothing in response. So the process that we'll have to do in this building, just like the others, would be to go ahead and have an asbestos survey done, go ahead and put the project out for bid with either this one and probably some other condemnation demolition projects that need to be accomplished, and then go ahead and bring the bid back to you for approval and have the final demolition take place with a lien being put onto the property. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or if Mr. McAdam has anything to add, or Mr. O'Hare has anything to add.
Thank you, Bill. Commissioner Solari.
Yeah. Bill, do you normally, as a normal course of events, advise the property owner of our action today?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all. I wouldn't want to delay the process at all. I just want them to know in case they want to hurry their own actions up. Thank you.
We hope that they would, but
yeah,
we haven't heard anything from them so far.
That's why I don't want to slow anything up. I mean, given that they've had a lot of time and the shape of the building, I wouldn't want to delay tearing it down at all, just out of courtesy, give them the
There'll
opportunity.
still be
to
a
do
window of time. If we move this forward, there'll be a window of time where they can get in and.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Commissioner Zork.
Yes, I know this isn't the actual condemnation award, that process will come down the road, but what kind of liability limits do we have the demolition contractors that bid, so in the event of a unplanned damage to the structure next door, how would that be addressed? We want to make sure that there's adequate coverage for, whether it's this demolition or any other one. Also, since those buildings have been adjoining for years and years, I could envision the remaining building that's being used is going to need some treatments or something for waterproofing on that north side. Whose side does that fall on, us or them, or does it see what we have when we get down to it?
To answer your first question, as far as liability, we require liability insurance. I believe the limit is, or the minimum limit is $1 million of liability insurance, so there should be ample protection there. As far as when the building comes down, what we face there, not really too sure at this point. It might be something that we need to work with the landowner as far as trying to shore up his building, making it waterproof. But certainly Mr. Cobb is in favor of having the building coming down. Right. If repairs need to be made later, I'm thinking that might not be such a bad thing for him. It might be an expense, but still much better than the situation that exists out there now.
Right, and those buildings there are not on water and sewer. I know the newer buildings behind it are. Is that on septic, and do we abandon those systems as well when we do demolition, or we just take it down to the slab traditionally?
No, I think Scott could address that.
Yes, on any of these projects that are condemned, all those systems are abandoned.
Okay.
Okay. Any other Commissioner Adams?
I'd just like to move staff's recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer for staff recommendation, which is to declare the structure unsafe and to adopt the resolution. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on the motion before us? Mr. O'Hare?
My name's Michael O'Hare. For your records, I'm a lawyer with offices on Cardinal Drive in Vero Beach. And James Cobb and Clyde Cobb have been employees of my brothers and mine and my families for more than 50 years. They're good, solid citizens. I've been riding herd on this with Bill for, I don't know, 20, 30 years now. Trying to bring it to a conclusion. We're now in the home stretch. I urge you to adopt the resolution, encourage Bill to proceed with it, and get that thing out of there. It's a cesspit.
Good. Thank you, Mr. O'Hare. Anyone else from the public wish to comment on the motion pending before us? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Commissioners, before we go a little further, I'd just like to take a minute. I think we have a few students in the audience this morning, possibly from the Charter High School. I see Mr. Gerard sitting there. Tim, would you like to introduce your student for us? Put him on the spot. Bring him up here to the podium.
Morning, everyone. my son Samuel Gerard. His first year at Indian River Charter High School, and I'm here today to show him the County Commissioners meeting.
Very good.
He's listening intently, by the way.
There's a test at the end.
Good morning, Mr. President.
He's the president, right? So, anything you'd like to say? He's very quiet.
Very good. Well, welcome, and hope you enjoy the meeting today.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And do we have any more students here, it looks like, maybe? You'd like to introduce? Come up to the podium. We'll really put you on the spot here.
Hello. My name is Michaela Callahan. I go to Charter. I'm a sophomore.
Great.
My name's Derek Callahan, and I'm a freshman at Charter High School.
Great. And what class is it that you're here that you're attending for?
I'm here for my home base class, and we do this at Charter. In our home base, they require us to go to a government meeting twice a year, so.
Well, very good. Well, welcome, and thank you for coming this morning.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Charter High School has the first representative to speak to one of the boards. They're frequent attendees at the planning and zoning meetings as well, but for as many years as we've had charter students there, Ms. Callahan is the first person to address the board. Congratulations.
Well, very good.
She should get extra credit for that.
Very good. Thank you all. Next is emergency services, signing the work order number 3 for the radio system P25 migration project. I see Chief King is here. Chief, did you want to make a brief presentation, or are we good to go with this?
While he's coming up, Mr. Chairman, I'll just note that this is a very expensive project, but it's one that the county will benefit from, and it's the type of thing which the citizens of Indian River County don't really see, which is a very enhanced radio system, which will allow all emergency services to respond quickly and then efficiently, especially during bad events. So, while some fiscal conservatives might, sort of choke a little bit at the full expense of it, even we recognize that it's good for the community as a whole.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And I'll be happy to move the item.
Second.
Thank you for
We have
your
a
embracement.
motion from Commissioner Solari, second from Commissioner Zork. Under discussion, Chief King. Welcome, John.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is John King. I'm the County Emergency Services Director, and I couldn't have said it better than Commissioner Solari. The system that we have is, again, we're in a 5-year plan. This is the 3rd year, and many of you remember that we started this 800 megahertz project back in 1995. It goes back quite a ways, and much of the equipment we have is dated, it's reaching end of life, and what we're asking for today is to begin phase 3 of this upgrade. And as Commissioner Solari so eloquently said, is that this system is what we're designing and continuing to move forward with is a very resilient system. It's much more resilient than the typical cell phone system that exists. It's evidenced by the last 15 years of hurricanes and severe weather we've had. Our radio system worked when our cell phones didn't. That's not a negative comment on cell phones. They're just not designed to work during all these severe weather events. It's also the end user equipment we use is very ruggedized, and so it's what the first responders and other employees are using in the field. We don't like people to drop radios, but when they do, they usually don't break. And they're very resilient. They work in the hurricanes. They work in all kinds of environments. Our law enforcement folks, our fire rescue folks, are very dependent upon the dispatchers about being able to call back home and say, I'm okay. And if they can't speak, there's an emergency button that says, I'm in distress and I can't speak, and somebody come help me. And the other part of the system is that the way that it works, the commission has some great foresight many years ago, because the cities, the counties, some of the local state agencies, and even some of the federal agencies, we all had separate radio systems, and there was very little interoperability. In the system we have now, many years ago, the cities, through the county administrator, decided, let's just pool our resources and be on one system. And right now, a deputy can talk to a police officer. A fire rescue person can talk to a public works agency that's outside the county's system. And so it's a very good system, very much was done on the forethinking about where we're going to be in 20 years or 25 years or 30 years, and that's where we are. And so I really applaud the commissioners for stepping up and saying, this is an expensive system, but it's a necessary system. The On the day-to-day operation, we have emergencies we go to every day, and those conversations are recorded in case there's a crime or a capital crime that has to be investigated later. We're sending information to the hospitals that's encrypted so that their person's primary and very essential medical information is kept private from everybody else. And we have the ability, yesterday we had a commercial fire on US 1. We had 19 responders, and they were all being able to talk to each other. Nobody got lost. Everybody knew where everybody was. And so with all that said, I just want to applaud the commission for recognizing, as Commissioner Solari said, it's an expensive system, it's a necessary system, and thank you for taking care of all the workers.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioners, any questions or comments for the Chief? Okay. We do have a motion from Commissioner Solari, second by Commissioner Zork. Is anyone from the public that wishes to comment on this? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Chief. Moving on to the Office of Management and Budget, fourth quarter preliminary fiscal year 2016-17 budget report, and that'll be done by the Budget Director, Michael Simkowski. Good morning, Michael. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Michael Smikowski, Indian River County Budget Director. I'm here to present the quarterly budget report through the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2016-17, and this is based on September 30th preliminary data. Overall, if you follow the arrows, our intergovernmental revenues are all doing well. That includes optional sales tax, which is an increase from last year through 11 months of 4.4%. Gas tax, the local option gas tax up 1.4%. The half-cent sales tax, an increase of 4.3%. And state revenue sharing, which in essence is almost like a sales tax funded program as well. It's largely the same funding base, is up 5%. I will focus, our franchise fees and our communication services tax are down slightly, 1.8%. Traffic impact fees are down from last year, 13.5%, and other impact fees are down 5.2%. And I'll take some time to go into those negative variances a little more deeply. And also at the end, I want to focus on the full year of operations at the intergenerational facility, given its first full year of operation. So franchise fees and communication services tax revenue. If you look at the first subtotal, electric utility franchise fee is down about 2.9%, or $181,000. We did have an unusually warm winter that contributed toward that negative variance. Solid waste franchise fee is up almost $62,000, or 15.1%. Natural gas is down 24.5%, but relative dollars is only about $19,000, so it's a relatively small component of our franchise fee, and that's reflective of how that whole market has changed in the past year or so. Natural gas has somewhat imploded. Water franchise fee is up 2.3%, or $38,000. Collectively, you're down about $100,000. The communication services tax is down $76,000, or 7%, and there's a whole host of exemptions that impact the total revenue. Collectively, when you look at franchise fees and the communication services tax as a whole, they are down 1.8%, or $176,000. In recognition of this, we have budgeted very conservatively in FY18 recognizing, and that is part of the value and purpose of these interim reports that we do throughout the year, is to take a look and critically at what you might be budgeting in the upcoming year as well. So we budgeted $1 million in the communication services tax. So we feel comfortable there that we've accommodated for that change in the electric utility franchise fee. We budgeted 6.8, and again, this is only 11 months of collections, as this was the preliminary data.
Mr. Chairman, before he changes pages, could you go back one slide, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Next year, by this time next year, everything stays as planned. The City of Vero Beach system will be sold to FP&L, thus creating lower rates for those 60% outside customers. Just ballparking this, the reduction in the bill and the franchise fee, we're looking at about a $700,000 franchise fee reduction that we'll need to keep in mind as we go forward. That'll be it's a great win for the community, and I know there's some offsetting things. Some of those assets that are not taxable today will become taxable after post-sale, so that will probably reconcile a lot of that, but that'll just be something we need to keep an eye on.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner Zerk.
Yeah, we do also, we do anticipate we'll receive savings on our own electric usage, which we think will be close to $500,000. One thing that is a little different is that's spread across some different funds. This all hits the MSTU fund, of course.
Right.
A lot of those savings will be in places like utilities that aren't a taxing fund, but overall, we think it will be pretty close to a wash. It'll be hard to see. There will be that ad valorem increase that we should get as well. That will offset that, but definitely will be a benefit to the county, the taxpayers and the ratepayers overall with that sale.
Thank you. Okay, Mike.
Okay, this slide shows the impact fee benefit districts. District 1 is in the northern part of the county, District 2, mid-county, and District 3 is South County, and that'll make more sense as I go in because that's how the revenue distribution is broken out. So just to orient you all who may be more familiar with it, but for the benefit of the public as well. So basically you're working north to south, District 1 through District 3. So traffic impact fee revenue year to date is down, if you look at the lower right, 13.5%, about $575,000. And that's inclusive of interest and contributions, which is important. District 1, you look at collections from 16 to 17. That's as close as you're going to get from year to year in terms of it's $1,054,704 in FY16 to $1,033,287. So down 2% or $21,000. So relatively static. You look District 2. We were up 0.2% or $3,838 at roughly $1,550,000 for each of the respective years. In terms of a revenue loss, it's in District 3 where in 2016 it was $1,143,349. Year to date through September was $778,226, or a decrease of $365,000. And as you can see, the area highlighted in yellow shows that is in the unincorporated area of the county. But there is a logical explanation. There was extraordinary activity in South County in the Lexington Square development in FY16. D.R. Horton pulled 41 single-family permits all at one time a year ago, which explains, the anomaly there. So there was extraordinary activity in FY16. The other important thing to note is Almost a third of the revenue reduction of the 575 is in the other contributions category. And you had, there was a one-time property sale and developer contributions toward a bridge project in FY 2016 that amounted to approximately just slightly in excess of $250,000. So impact fees are down in traffic due to that one-time activity, but you also had that one-time activity in the non-impact fee category. It was a developer contribution that contributes to, it's roughly a third of that $575,000 decrease. Other impact fees, if you look FY16 across the categories, the subtotal showing the impact fees was $2.4 million. It was approximately $2.3 million in FY17, a decrease of 5.3% or $127,000 highlighted in yellow. The second block here shows a breakout between residential and commercial activity from 16 to 17. You see the decrease in the residential activity of approximately $200,000 that was offset by an uptick in commercial activity of $72,000, netting to that $127,000 reduction. So overall, fairly static. Moving on to the tax-supported funds. The general fund, FY16 expenses and revenues netted to a shortfall of almost $6 million, 16-17. It's improved by almost $3 million. We had ad valorem proceeds that increased due to tax roll growth. Another important thing to recognize is due to FTA grants, we have a receivable that finance has booked due to a timing issue, and that's $2.35 million. So that is significant. In addition, you have hurricane expenses that are included on the expense side. They are just about complete with our PWs for Hurricane Matthew, beginning to write our Hurricane Irma expenses. Now, Irma expenses are going to be split between 2 fiscal years since some of the expense was incurred in FY17. Some will obviously have occurred after October 1st of the year. Finance has booked receivables of approximately $1.25 million in the general fund. So if you look at the receivables plus the FTA grants, the timing issue there, that $3 million shortfall would become a surplus. So that is an important factor as we move forward, those receivables. In the MSTU, we've got a favorable variance at the far right of $885,000. You've got a positive revenue variance when comparing to the similar period in FY16 of $4.1 million. Expenses were up $3.3 million. So overall here, and again, this was the preliminary as you September sales tax revenue that would not have been posted here would add about $500,000 to the revenue tally, and you've got about $86,000 in hurricane receivables yet that were booked within the MSTU. Transportation fund. Overall, positive variance of $341,000. This is largely funded via interfund transfers from the general fund and the unincorporated area. Those increased $556,000. You had a number of areas that increased operating areas that would also be inclusive of hurricane expenses. And as well, you had a one-time OPEB expense of $796,000 in FY16. That was the transportation fund's proportionate share. The board will recall we bought down our outstanding liability by $9 million in FY16. So you did have that one-time expense that would have occurred within the transportation fund in FY16. Emergency services, bottom line, positive variance of about $2.9 million. On the revenue side, you're up about $2.9 million compared to the same period in FY16, principally a function of ad valorem, increase in the millage rate and property values. We've also increased the level of service by adding new stations. You also had a firefighter assistance grant that increased slightly over $800,000. On the expense side, it was relatively flat from 16 to 17. Keynote things though, capital outlay decreased $1.3 million. You had Station 1 renovations being completed. And on the expense side, you also had salary and benefits increasing associated with the opening of Station 15. In the enterprise funds, the golf course is reflective of a gain of about $642,000, very similar to the previous year. SWID net income was $727,000 versus about 2.4. However, that's impacted by hurricane expenses. You will have a receivable in the associated with the hurricanes of about $1.4 million, which will obviously improve the bottom line when those are received. Utilities, combined water and sewer sales are up 2.7%. Expenses were up through the preliminary September close, up 5.9%, and that's associated with an aggressive repair and replacement program. Obviously, as the system ages, continuing to reinvest in piping, equipment, et cetera, is important to keeping the age of the system up to date so that it is current and in a good state of repair. Obviously, as the system ages, that becomes more important. Fleet had a gain of $15,574 versus $94,000 the previous year. The price of fuel has gone up. There were also some retirement payouts that occurred during FY17. The shooting range reflected a loss of $224,000 versus $176,000 from the previous year. Net income should obviously improve with the skeet and trap facility open for the full tourist season, and the Hunter Education Building would be opening shortly. I'd like to focus quickly on the IG, or intergenerational facility operations. This shows IG revenue and expenses, and then at the very bottom, highlighted in yellow, it shows the percent of expenses offset by the revenue. So the original budget, we had estimated about just shy of $150,000 in revenue and about $400,000 in expense. So roughly 37.2% of the IG expenses were offset by operating revenues. Through the amended budget, it was $245,000 on the revenue side, about $503,000 on the expense side. That increased the revenue as a percentage of expense to 48.8%. More importantly, though, rather than budget is where you actually ended up. So actual revenues were slightly in excess of $229,000. Budgeting conservatively, the goal is to end up with more revenue, and hopefully you spend a little less on the expense side. We did spend less in salary and benefits. Overall, we spent about just shy of $400,000. So revenue as a percentage of expense, the actual was 57.7%. So that is certainly much better than the adopted budget. And as we move forward, it's always difficult in year one to estimate what your revenues are going to be. As we move forward, we can perhaps be a little more aggressive relative to what we budget on the revenue side.
Mike, if I may?
Yes, sir.
Does it look like that? I mean, the revenue as a percent of expense number is much better than initially thought. And that's driven by the fact that there's a lot more revenue coming in, which to me is an indication that there are more people coming in and more programs being given, which, again, I understand that this is a high, big capital expense is actually, for me, a significant plus. But the expenses, is that look like a good sustainable expense number, or could it be the case that we're lagging behind in the number of people we need to run the facility optimally because we anticipated a level of business at X, but now it's X plus 50%? Does that question make sense?
Yes, it does. I think that's something that Mr. Nalbandian, Mr. Redstone, and Mr. Zito are evaluating all the time, what the level of staffing is to meet the demand. I know we added some part-time employees in the 18 budget to add some flexibility because of the odd times. A lot of the activities are occurring after hours, evening parties and the like. I think it is fairly sustainable.
My last comment on that is this is one of the weird areas where if the actual loss increased by, say, 20%, but the activity increased by 50%, again, because it's a very high capital, expensive building, that additional use would actually make me happy rather than sad. I mean, I think that would be an indication of a successful facility which is well utilized by the citizens.
Yes, sir, and I think the whole goal of developing an intergenerational facility was, during the day, retirees might use it, after school programming might use it, post-school time, so that there's a continuous flow of people in and out, and that facility is getting hard use. I think that's been a success story, and I commend the folks in Parks and Recreation for their efforts. They've worked hard, I know, to market that facility and to fill it up. I know it's getting more popular for birthday parties and events, after hours parties, for special activities, which is reflected in the revenue. And I think that bodes well as we move forward, because this is really the kind of the fledgling year of operation for this facility. But it has gotten hard use, and obviously, like you said, when you make the major capital investment, the worst thing you can have is that a facility is going to lie dormant and be underutilized. In fact, I think we've seen the direct opposite, that they've really worked hard to fill the rooms up and generate the revenues to fully utilize that facility. I think Mr. Brown has some comments as well.
At the end of the day, we were conservative up front with revenues before we opened it. We didn't know how busy it would be. The good news is we have had more revenues than we anticipated, more activity than we anticipated. We have increased the budget a little bit for this year to deal with some of that. Like Mike said, we had some part-timers to give us flexibility. for help cleaning the facilities for events and things like that, but we view that as a good thing, that those increases have been paid for by the increase in the revenue over what we initially expected, and we are seeing a great amount of activity, and it continues to increase. And as Mike said, Mike Zito and Mike Redstone and Rich Nalbanian have been doing a great job of getting the word out, and we are seeing activity increase there at the IG, which is good. It's become quite busy.
And I'll just join Mike and you, Jason, to thank everybody who's worked to make this a success.
Commissioner Zork?
Yes, this might be directed to Assistant Administrator Zito, or how we could formulate this, but for each of our facilities that we have, you actually have a full calendar year. The full calendar year is not completely rentable due to, Christmas. Nobody's going to book an event at the IG building on Christmas or other ones. Is how do we see how our utilization rate is growing, and how do we define our utilization periods to know, is the IG building at 20% of capacity in terms of rental slots or booking slots? Some way to kind of track, and I don't know what it will, almost like a dashboard type of illustration or some kind of a spreadsheet to keep some people up here happy. But maybe in your work, if you see something, whether it's the fairgrounds, any building that we have that we rent or that we host programs at, to get an idea how much utilization we're getting out of the capital and investment. And I don't know on this one, ballpark, I know when I've stopped in down there, there's always something going on, but it has so many rooms, you could be using the gym for pickleball, but all the meeting rooms might be, or yoga rooms or whatever they're being used for. That's a facility you'd have to break into pieces to get a utilization, but some way you could look at it and get an idea of, or a feel of, how much of it are we actually using if it's available capacity.
Certainly. Michael Zito, Assistant County Administrator. Good morning. We can certainly provide that to you as a breakdown of each individual rentable space in the IG. Obviously, the weekends are going to be your primary facility rental opportunities, and most weekends they are booked for different reasons, some recurring, and a lot of random different types of celebratory events that come in through different organizations or private parties. But certainly the calendar has 52 weekends, and we have 6 or 7 rentable opportunities within the IG. We can break that down in the spreadsheet for you, show you the calendar with only 1 year of experience, but it'll still give you an idea.
I think I'm trying to look at a way, how do we measure our progress? If year 1 was 1, year 2 is this, how do we see if we need to tweak something along the way? How is our, if some of the things that Commissioner Solari said, if utilization is up and expenses are up, obviously that would be, you don't want to see expenses up and utilization and revenue going in the wrong direction. So some way to, as you go to different things or things that budget side, see some way of just illustrating how we can measure utilization and look at that, how it goes into the big picture. And also for fairgrounds or maybe other facilities that we rent. I know the fairground isn't as frequently rented as IG because you have many venues within one property that you can do things in.
Certainly we can provide that, similar data for the fairgrounds as well, which has also seen increased utilization over the last 5 years, and particularly this year. And we had a couple of years where it was used as a jail, and we had another recurring.
That was 100% utilization.
Yeah, that was very active. But in recent years, it's been used as the recreational basketball facility, which is no longer the case now that we have the IG. So we have now calendared events in June and July, which we've never had before. So both facilities are very active, and we, as you know, breed a culture of conservative staffing, and some of that's falling on the exempt folks who are stretched pretty thin, but we're making it work. I'm very proud of their efforts, and it continues to grow without growing the budget. In fact, I want to point out to you that the increases that we mentioned for the cleaning staff were funded out of the line item that was for outside cleaning services. So it should have been a net wash to the budget. So we haven't proposed that staffing increase. We'll monitor it. Things are going very well. but we can certainly provide you that, that data
Okay.
in terms of utilization and the different rentable opportunities within the fairgrounds and the IG. Very
Oh, if we
soon.
know if we need to expand marketing to help fill those slots or develop new programs that would help increase the utilization of the property. But thanks for your input on that.
And you mentioned pickleball. We don't need to advertise that. It's very popular.
And Commissioner Zork, I can tell you, I get the weekly activities list from the staff there. And two things. One is that activities list is growing. More and more slots are being filled. And the other thing I think it's even more important is that some of the outside folks that come in to run programs, there's a guy that does cloud walking and various types of feng shui or whatever they call it. Not only,
Feng shui.
Yeah, not only are they doing the classes, they're still doing the classes. So they must be getting enough business
come in.
for them to continue to rent the room and do that. So it's not very scientific, but from a quick snapshot point of view, it is growing in popularity. I can tell you, every time I bring somebody in there, they're just in awe over how nice the facility is. And then they start, light bulbs start going off, or we can host this here. And, we're talking about the high school homecomings now and things like that. The word's getting out. So it is certainly growing. But again, maybe Mike and them can put together something more statistically valid, but just from a gut feeling, it's really, it's getting used by youth and seniors, the whole spectrum. So it's gone very well.
Certainly your event rentable opportunities are going to be your revenue drivers. The programming is typically not going to generate a significant amount of revenue in terms of the price points. Our entrance fee is still $3. We still charge $3 for kids to walk into the aquatic centers, and these are, we're proud of that as a community to be able to offer those opportunities at very low price points. But the event rentals are where your revenue generation is going to be, and the nice thing about that is it's still attractive to those event makers at a reasonable price as well. But that's where you're seeing the revenue tick up a bit as those are higher price points for the rental. So that's where you're going to see that revenue stream continue to flow and grow. At the same time, many IG and community center models really those that strive to maximize that revenue to expense ratio will utilize a paid membership and a typical fitness center opportunity, which we've moved away from because we feel there's enough private sector opportunity there. We don't want to, our philosophy was never to get into that business, but that's how a lot of communities offset the expense. We want to be able to do it through those private affairs and generate the revenue through those room rentals and event opportunities.
Good. Thank you, Mike.
One last question that may fall under your same area, not on the IG, but the new classroom that's going to be opening up at the North County Shooting Range, would that room also be available for rent for other activities that they just want to be in that kind of environment for a get-together program or something? That would also be a rental space when it's not used for its intended purpose?
Certainly. It'll fall into the same menu of hourly rates as the fairgrounds, proportionately priced and so forth. When that comes online. And I understand there's a need in that part of the county for that space available.
Great, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Yes,
Michael,
that
back to you.
concludes my presentation. Thank you, commissioners.
That's it?
Finished,
Okay,
thank you.
Any last questions for Mike on the budget update? This is just a presentation, so no action is needed. Michael, thank you
That's
very much.
correct. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We now move on to the county attorney matters. The first one is Indian River County Committees, the member reappointments. And Dylan, please.
Thank you very much. Per Resolution 2011-72, it is the responsibility of the County Attorney's Office to monitor the membership of various different boards and commissions. Per the resolution, we reached out to the members of whose terms were expiring in January of 2018 to just gauge and monitor their interest in being reappointed. In the back is a list of those members who would like to be reappointed to the various committees for another term. Also in your backup is a list of vacancies for the various committees. County Attorney's Office simply just recommends that the board consider the attached list of committee members requesting reappointment and reappoint those members to the board that the board deems appropriate. I would also just like to thank Christine Moore in our office. She puts a lot of effort into contacting the members and making sure we've got all our committees filled. So thank you very much. With that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you, Dylan. Commissioners, unless someone wants to pull an individual committee, I'd be glad to accept a motion as moving these as a block.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Solari, second from Commissioner Flesher, to accept all the committee reappointments as presented in the county attorney's backup. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to comment on the motion pending before us? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you, Dylan, for keeping track of this.
Thank you.
I know back in my early years, this was always a goat rodeo trying to sort this out, and ever since we made the wise decision to turn it over to you, it's worked out much better. So it's I'm very pleased with that. Second, under county attorney matters, is the amendment to the Hobart Tower lease. Again, commissioners in Granicus, you should show on your list there the replacement amendment to the lease. And with that, Ms. Kate Cotner with the County Attorney's Office will make the presentation. Kate, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much. In 2008, Indian River County entered into a lease agreement with Global Tower where it was after the hurricanes, our communications tower was very damaged. And so they leased the property on Hobart Tower. They built a new communications tower there, and we have equipment on there, they have equipment on there, and at the moment it's set to expire in 2018. It has the ability to be extended for up to 20 years, and they would like to use that, ability, as well as extend it even farther. So it would be the 20 years as well as an additional 15 years, which would take it through 2053. In exchange, they are willing to give us a $10,000 payment. The reason why it was amended is in your memo, you'll see here that it talked about the right of first refusal. They wanted to have the ability, if someone came forward to buy the property, that they would have the right of first refusal if it was a third-party competitor. This potentially could have run afoul of our public bidding procurement process, so they agreed to take that out. So really, everything remains the same as the original agreement. We get to share the rent the same way. It's just that they want to extend it. So the County Attorney's Office recommends that the board authorize Jason Brown, the County Administrator, to execute a number of documents. One is the amendment to the lease. The other is a memorandum of the lease, which is just a secondary document, as well as a resolution and consent affidavit. They want to make sure that Jason has the authority from the board, and it will expedite the process as opposed to waiting for the official minutes to be approved.
Thank you, Kate. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Solari.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand the changes. So this is to add possibility of 15 more years to the lease for the $10,000 signing bonus with no right of refusal, first refusal.
Right.
Fine.
Well, actually, 20 years from the original agreement and additional 15 years.
Yeah, an additional 15
Okay.
years to the existing contract.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
So with that, I'm happy to move the item, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Solari, second from Commissioner Flesher. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Anyone from the public wish to comment on the motion pending before us?
I don't think there is any.
I got to ask or Dylan will yell at me. Seeing none from the public, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Kate, I assume you're going to stick around for a minute for Commissioner Solari's item?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And that does take us to Commissioner Matters. Under Commissioner Bob Solari, we have an item about Senate Bill 574, which is Senator Greg Stubbe's tree bill. Commissioner Solari, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is more for information for the public than anything. We all, as board members, know that or believe that it's almost like there's an assault against home rule up in Tallahassee. A lot of bills have come which would remove our ability to make what we believe are the proper type of decisions for our community. And this one is one that is being presented by Senator Greg Stubbe, and I'll just read 3 paragraphs out of an editorial. Senator Greg Stubbe, a Sarasota Republican, believing regulating trees is a power best left to Tallahassee and not City Hall. The bills would strip local government of power to prohibit landowners from removing or trimming trees on their own property. The bill would also block governments from requiring landowners to plant new trees or pay a fee towards removing the trees. Finally, local government would have no say in stopping landowners from burying vegetative debris on the sites larger than 2.5 acres. And here, for me, is the most important part of this. Stubbe told the Sarasota Herald Tribune that the bill was inspired in part by the fact that he had to comply with a county tree ordinance before clearing an acre of his 5.3-acre parcel to build a 3-car garage with a mother-in-law apartment. So, I mean, this is a case where a member of the House had a personal problem with a local ordinance, so his solution is to stop every local government in the state of Florida from having an ordinance. And I find that to be extremely problematic. I also find it problematic that because you're in Tallahassee, you have the wisdom and experience to tell every local municipality and every local county that you're better able to tell which trees ought to be trimmed than others. I mean, I'll note that I don't believe that there should be tree ordinances for residents as opposed to commercial properties, because I think they're very different. But I don't think it would be my business as a state legislator to tell the local governments that they're wrong. And as a matter of fact, I mean, we have a tree ordinance, and I think some things in it ought to be changed, but the way to change it is to not deny local authority. So I think this is just wrong. And I know that Kate is doing a great job looking at these type of things which impact home rule and is regularly trying to keep us apprised of them. But I just want to add this to her list as just one of those things to look. And I believe if we ever have any chance to talk to our local representatives, that we ought to let them know that this is not the way to go about change, is to deny local government the ability to manage their own areas. And yes, some of us will make mistakes, but the way to solve this is to try to educate us. It's not to take our authority away from us. So with that ends your first diatribe for me as Chairman.
I'm anxiously awaiting more over the next year.
Oh, I expect there'll be some.
It would be my pleasure. But yeah, Kate, I think this clearly falls under our one priority of protecting home rule. So this can go on your radar, but we'll still be fighting it just because it impacts our local rulemaking authority.
Okay. I'll just add one more thing. Last year, we were up in Tallahassee, and there was one legislature who didn't like the way his county used reserves. And, you know, he was going to absolutely constrain counties' ability to deal with their own finances, which for us, and I believe we're one of the most fiscally responsible counties in America, it would have impacted us in ways that we don't even really understand yet, and which the legislature certainly couldn't understand. And again, the idea that a legislature finds one problem in one of 67 counties, so he has to deprive all 67 counties of the ability to deal with the problem, it's bad government at the end of the day. So, sorry for that appendum to the diatribe.
Is that 2 diatribes there?
No, that's just an appendum to the first diatribe.
That's an amendment to the original diatribe, okay.
Wow.
So, Kate, we're good here?
Well, I just wanted to add one thing and ask a question. So if we're adding this onto the list of concerns.
It doesn't even have to be added specifically to it. It's just, again,
it just
this was
falls
mostly
under
to
the
let
home
the
rule.
public know what's happening, and because they might not understand why we feel that the threat to home rule is a threat. I mean, I know that there are many more citizens in Indian River County who like residential tree ordinances than I do, but they should know that this is under, that local government may soon be deprived of the ability to deal with this. And it's not, today it's tree ordinances, tomorrow it's going to be something else.
Last year's our gas station signs we can't regulate now.
Yeah, and the mini cell towers.
Right. Well, and I wanted to make sure that you guys knew, so we did have a conversation with the sponsor, Senator Stubbe. In particular, we talked about how one size doesn't fit all, and just because there may be an ordinance that is very, very strict in his community, that doesn't mean he should punish everyone. And we also specifically addressed the tree burial, because the way that the legislation reads is you're allowed to bury debris or vegetative debris if you have a parcel that's more than 2.5 acres. And we were concerned that other people would start taking their neighbor's debris and putting it onto their land. And he said that was not his intention. So I believe he's looking at amending it just to make sure that that doesn't happen, where you don't all of a sudden have these impromptu landfills kind of popping up. But I just wanted to make the board aware of that. We've tried having conversations, and we will continue.
And if I may, Kate, last week you were in Tallahassee, and I believe Senator Mayfield's high-speed rail safety bill cleared a committee. You want to just give us a quick update on that?
Absolutely. So it was a 6-0 vote, and I think that it's a great starting point, I think, is how the senator worded it, and we're actually we're in continuing discussions moving forward, but it's definitely up and moving, and we're hoping that the House bill will be scheduled next. So it was a success.
And it's my understanding that the House bill is a little bit different, so at some point they'll have to reconcile the two?
Yes. Okay. The House bill mainly deals with costs as far as those the license agreements. I know that Representative Grawl is working very diligently with FDOT, the Florida Department of Transportation, just because right now they do have the authority to do a lot when it comes to safety with high-speed rail. And so she is working with them, and I believe there was a comment made that, if that is unsuccessful, that perhaps these two bills will come together, and she would be open to amending it. But the Senate bill deals with the same language as far as the crossing agreements and also the safety aspects that was recommended by the Federal Railroad Administration.
Very good.
Thank
Commissioners, Commissioner Zork?
One, under Commissioner Stubbe's bill, this was to build a mother-in-law apartment on his property, or was that a short-term rental he wanted to add to his property?
Well,
I'm just curious. I know he's such an advocate for that maybe he's adding on to his property for other reasons, using the mother-in-law.
I cannot comment on that. I don't know. I don't know.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all your hard work up in Tallahassee. Please keep up the good work. Very good. Commissioners, that concludes the agenda. We do have Thanksgiving coming up, so to all the commissioners, to all of our staff, and to all citizens of Indian River County, I'd like to wish everyone a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.